नमस्कार. जलसंपदा विभागाच्या या सर्वांचं स्वागत करतो. वेबिनार सिरीज घेतली लिफ्ट इरिगेशन स्कीम्स आणि WA फॉरम वेबिनार सिरीज घेतली आपण घेतले डिपार्टमेंटच्या अतिशय जिव्हाळ्याचे आणि नियमित दैनंदिन कामकाजाच्या दृष्टीने अत्यंत महत्त्वाचे आहेत. हे जे 6 वक्ते जे आहेत या सिरीज मधले ते अत्यंत या क्षेत्रातले तज्ञ अनुभवी असे व्यक्ती आहेत. या वेबिनार सिरीजचं उद्घाटन करण्याची विनंती मी आपल्या विभागाचे अपर मुख्य सचिव श्री विजयकुमार गौतम साहेब यांना करतो. धन्यवाद.
सर्व उपस्थित मान्यवरांचे मी एक महत्त्वाच्या व्याख्यानांचे आयोजन जे 18 जानेवारी पासून ते 23/1 पर्यंत होणार आहे याच्या आज पासून सुरुवात होत आहे आणि या 6 कार्यशाळेचे उद्घाटन आज इथे होत आहे असं मी जाहीर घोषित करतो.
तो लाल लागून लाल वाला
हा का
हाँ सर.
सुरू करू मैं बोलू का?
हाँ सर. यस
सर
हा
नार्वेकर
सर
आज या ठिकाणी
सर
18 जानेवारी पासून ते 23/1/2021 पर्यंत 6 व्याख्यान ठेवण्यात आलेले आहेत आणि या व्याख्यानांच्या विषयांची पाहणी करीत असताना मला असं वाटतंय की हा जलसंपदा विभागाचा जो पूर्ण स्पेक्ट्रम आहे प्रकल्पांच्या अंमलबजावणीपासून ते निर्माण करण्यात आलेल्या साठ्याचा पाणी जेव्हा आपण लोकांच्या वापरासाठी सोडतो तर सिंचनाच्या पाण्याच्या उपयोगापर्यंत म्हणजे एंड टू एंड जेवढे महत्त्वाचे विषय शक्य असतील त्या सर्व इथे ठेवण्यात आलेल्या आहेत आणि त्याबद्दल मी डॉक्टर बेलसरे आणि त्यांचे सर्व सहकार्यांना खरोखर त्यांचे अभिनंदन करतो. काय की pitfalls in administration of B1 contracts म्हणजे आपण प्रकल्पाच्या अंमलबजावणी इफेक्टिव्ह रित्या करताना आपल्याला काय अडचणी येतात तिथून ही सुरुवात आहे. नंतर मेंटेनिंग गुड क्वालिटी इन वर्क्स, then application of ferrocement technology in water resource sector, learning from failure in mechanical components of LIS, आणि नंतर फंक्शन अँड रोल ऑफ रेग्युलेटरी ऑथॉरिटी आणि शेवटी कपॅसिटी बिल्डिंग ऑफ WUA म्हणजे योग्यरित्या वेळेवर दिलेल्या एस्टिमेट प्लॅनच्या अंतर्गत क्वालिटी काम करून आणि फेरो सिमेंट सारख्या ज्या नवीन प्रकारच्या गोष्टी आता कन्स्ट्रक्शन सेक्टर मध्ये खूप पॉप्युलर झालेल्या आहेत त्याचा वापर करून नंतर काही जे लेसन्स ऑफ फेलियर्स आहेत जे आपल्या फील्ड मधून आलेले आहेत या सर्व गोष्टींचा इथे समावेश दिसतोय आणि मला याचा आनंद आहे की आजचा जो वर्कशॉप आहे तो म्हणजे माझा अनुभव या विभागाचा जरी कमी असला तर मी या विषयाचं नाव वाचूनच मला समजलं की दिस मस्ट बी द मोस्ट डिबेटेड and widely argued subject in PWD and Water Resources Department, because it is the B1 contract which binds us and the contractor who delivers the product. आणि त्याच्यामध्ये या B1 कॉन्ट्रॅक्ट मध्ये कुठे पिटहॉल्स हे आहेत आपण तुम्हाला माहित आहे की वर्षोवर्षी आपण त्या कॉन्ट्रॅक्ट मध्ये दिलेल्या कलम 14 चा वापर दुरुपयोग होऊ नये त्याबद्दलचे मार्गदर्शक तत्व इश्यू केले. नंतर कलम 37/38 म्हणजे कलम 38 आणि 37 म्हणजे हा तर मला वाटतं फॅन्टम सेक्शन आहे. इट इज द फॅन्टम सेक्शन ऑफ B1 कॉन्ट्रॅक्ट. म्हणजे तुमचं नियोजन काही असू द्या तुमची तयारी काही असू द्या, if this clause is not applied and appreciated properly right from the junior engineer to the executive engineer and above, the whole thing can go for a 6. आणि तुमच्यासारख्या अनुभवी लोकांना या संबंधी मला जास्त याच्यावर बोलायची काय आवश्यकता नाही असं मला वाटतंय. ते आपले BS पाटील साहेब लीगल ऍडवायझर त्याच्यावर बोलतील. मात्र या विषयावर चर्चा करत असताना कॉन्ट्रॅक्ट ऍक्टच्या हिशेबाने आपल्या रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी आणि अधिकार काय आहे याच्यावर तुम्ही चर्चा करणारच. मात्र त्याच्या पलीकडे जाऊन तांत्रिक दृष्ट्या जे अडचणी आपल्या तर्फे निर्माण होतात, समजा सर्वेक्षण आणि अन्वेषणचा काम डिटेल्ड रित्या झाला नाही, त्याच्यात लगेच परिणाम त्या संकल्प चित्र ते डिझाईन जे तुम्ही म्हणता त्याचा बोलतो, त्याच्या लगेच प्रमाण क्वांटिटीवर होतो. त्यानंतर विषय निर्माण होतात कुठल्या बाबी ह्यात आहेत नाही आहेत. तर बेसिकली हा काय आहे की B1 कॉन्ट्रॅक्टचे ऍडमिनिस्ट्रेशन इज अ व्हेरी डेलिकेट अँड व्हेरी very sensitive play between the contractual obligations on the part of WRD and the contractor as per the Contract Act, and secondly on the part of our technical team, which has to ensure that there is no congenital defect in the entire conceptualization of the project, because if the congenital defects are start reflecting at the midway in the project, the problem starts, and then the time overruns, then the cost overruns. आणि ती पूर्ण प्रक्रिया आपल्याला माहित आहे. आपली प्रक्रिया शासकीय एवढी किचकट असते की once a problem line starts, then coming up to the government, going down, it itself ensures that your administrative approval is never confirmed. It always has a seed of further revision. तर या दृष्टीने किंवा एखाद्या वेळी आपण कॉन्ट्रॅक्टच्या विखंडन करीत असताना कोणत्या कोणत्या क्रिटिकल पॉइंट्स लक्षात ठेवलं पाहिजे हे सर्वांना माहित आहे, मला बोलायची गरज नाही. पण तरी जे मी पाहतोय काही विखंडनाचे आदेश आणि त्याची अंमलबजावणी आणि त्याच्यामुळे निर्माण होणारा कॉन्ट्रॅक्च्युअल ऑब्लिगेशन वरची विपत परिस्थिती, या सर्व गोष्टीचा मला वाटतं म्हणजे याच्यापेक्षा छान विषय सुरुवातीचा होऊ शकत नाही. आणि माझी अशी विनंती राहील की आपल्याला पाटील साहेब गाईड करतीलच, मात्र आमची जे सर्व तांत्रिक यंत्रणेची टीम बसलेली आहे त्यांनी याच्यावर खूप गहनरित्या विचार करावा आणि याच्यातून एक प्लेज निघायला पाहिजे की आपल्याला B1 कॉन्ट्रॅक्टच्या मिस इंटरप्रिटेशन किंवा त्याच्यामधल्या पिटफॉल्स आपल्याला न समजल्यामुळे आपण जे काही निर्णय घेतो, काही वेळी आपले निर्णय नी जर्क रिॲक्शननी होतात, तर त्या गोष्टीचा दुष्परिणाम शेवटी आपल्यालाच भोगावा लागतो. सो बेसिकली मी तुम्हाला सर्वांना खूप शुभेच्छा देतो. आमचे जेवढे व्याख्याते आहेत, खूप डिस्टिंग्विश्ड लोकांची यादी आहे. BS पाटील साहेब असो किंवा मिस्टर VM रानाडे रिटायर्ड सेक्रेटरी आहेत, मिस्टर RR पवार रिटायर्ड सेक्रेटरी आहेत, मिस्टर VK कांबळे रिटायर्ड CE आहेत, बक्षी साहेब आमचे खूप वरिष्ठ आणि अनुभवी आमचे वरिष्ठ सहकारी आहेत, मिस्टर जयदीप हार्डीकर आहेत. तर या सर्व एवढ्या लोकांच्या एवढा वेळ आपल्या बरोबर जाईल, त्याच्या खरोखर काहीतरी एक प्रत्येक सेशन नंतर एक आउटकम ओरिएंटेड रेकमेंडेशन यायला पाहिजे. काय की एवढे अनुभवी आणि विद्वान मंडळी जर अशा प्रकारच्या चर्चेमध्ये सहभागी होत असतील तर त्याचा कुठेतरी डिव्हिडंड आपल्या कामामध्ये सुधारणा करण्याच्या दृष्टीने पुढे मिळायला पाहिजे. आणि ही पूर्ण व्याख्यानमाला जी आहे तुमची 6 सिरीजची, त्याला खूप सुयश मी चिंतितो आणि तुम्हाला सर्वांना खूप मनापासून यात पार्टिसिपेट करण्यासाठी अभिनंदन करतो. धन्यवाद.
थँक्यू.
धन्यवाद सर.
थँक्यू.
आता आजच्या वेबिनारला सुरुवात करूया. BS पाटील साहेब यांची आपल्याला ओळख करून देण्याची गरज फारशी वाटत नाही, कारण आपल्या बहुतांशी लोकांनी त्यांचं सिव्हिल इंजिनिअरिंग कॉन्ट्रॅक्ट्स अँड एस्टिमेट्स हे पुस्तक कॉलेजमध्ये टेक्स्टबुक म्हणून वापरलं असणार आहे. सरांची आणखीन 2 पुस्तकं प्रसिद्ध आहेत, ते म्हणजे बिल्डिंग अँड इंजिनिअरिंग कॉन्ट्रॅक्ट्स, तसंच लॉ ऑफ आर्बिट्रेशन अँड कोइन्सिलेशन. सरांनी जवळपास 20 वर्ष इंजिनिअरिंग कॉलेजेसना टीचिंग म्हणजे अध्यापन केलेलं आहे, औरंगाबाद आणि पुणे गव्हर्नमेंट इंजिनिअरिंग कॉलेजेसना. आणि नंतरची जवळपास 40-42 वर्ष सर कन्सल्टंट, कोइन्सिलेटर, आर्बिट्रेटर, ऍडव्होकेट म्हणून काम करत आहेत. आणि या विषयाचा त्यांचा इतका व्यासंग आहे की विविध सुप्रीम कोर्टात समोर, हायकोर्टासमोर त्यांनी या विषयाची मांडणी केलेली आहे. अनेक प्रकरणांमध्ये त्यांनी आपलं मत मांडलेलं आहे. तर असे अत्यंत अभ्यासू, व्यासंगी, या विषयाचे सखोल ज्ञान असलेले व्याख्याते आपल्याला आज लाभलेले आहेत. मी BS पाटील सरांना विनंती करतो की आजच्या वेबिनारला त्यांनी सुरुवात करावी. धन्यवाद.
Good morning, everybody. At the outset, I express my deep sense of gratitude to the organizers of this event, and in particular to Engineer Narvekar Saab for giving me this opportunity to express and exchange my views with you on the subject which is very dear and near to me for last over 50 years. The subject title can be said to be Disputes Arising Out of Contract. Nobody is surprised because this is almost everyday affair that a contract of appreciable size project rarely gets completed without giving rise to some disputes or other. what surprises me is that I just translate this subject, disputes arising out of contract, by use of dictionary. A dispute, according to dictionary meaning, means disagreement, and contract, as per the dictionary, means agreement. So the subject is disagreements arising out of agreement. For last 50 years or over 50 years, I am struggling with this, that how can and why should disputes arise out of agreement? Disagreements arise out of agreements. Sorry for interruption.
Sir, you can continue.
Agreement cannot give rise to disagreement, is my honest opinion. Therefore, when I examine why the disputes arise out of contract, the first point that we need to be aware of is whether there is an agreement between the parties. What is an agreement? When the Indian Contract Act was enacted in the year 1872, the contracts were prepared by negotiations across the table, each clause being discussed, agreed, and then reduced into writing and incorporated in the contract. Now, those forms of contract are no longer in use. Expansion of industry and trade, improvement in technology, all resulted into use of standard form contracts. A standard form contract is drafted by one party and it is signed on dotted line by the other party. The concept of agreement, namely meeting of the minds of the two parties agreeing, is absent, and therefore the law has stamped these kinds of agreements as contracts of adhesion, adhesive contract. Why so? Because the role of one party to the contract is merely to adhere to the terms and conditions dictated by the other party. The party signing on the dotted line has no say of any type or kind in formation of contract document. Obviously, the resulting agreement technically or legally may be an agreement, but in reality, it is not the meeting of the minds of the two parties. And that is why the possibility of dispute arises. Now, why these adhesive contracts are treated separately by judiciary world over? Because these contracts pose a great problem to the judiciary. It is the duty of the judiciary to do justice in a case of breach of contract by awarding compensation to the party which is injured to be paid by the party which is wrongdoer. Now, when these contracts are considered, they include, for example, this B1 form includes several clauses which start with no payment of compensation will be allowed if ABC happens. Now the challenge is to the judiciary. The person has signed the contract, has given up his right to compensation. Do justice. Now friends, fortunately, judiciary world over has accepted the challenge and come out with some ways and means of doing or rendering justice. The method was of interpretation of such contracts, and at one stage these rules were being called backdoor judicial techniques to render justice. Contra pro forensum rule, for example, means that if the agreement can be interpreted in two ways, then the interpretation against the person drafting the agreement will be accepted, and interpretation in favor of the person signing on the dotted line will be accepted. Like that, several rules and regulations have come out by which the justice is rendered by judiciary. We will examine those rules and regulations with concrete example of considering B1 form of contract conditions. Now, to start with, clause 2 will be taken. Now, clause 2, before we consider this and discuss, certain basic knowledge is needed. Clause 2 declares that time shall be deemed to be of the essence of the contract on the part of the contractor. Now, it is necessary to first understand the concept of time being essence of the contract and consequences of time being essence of the contract. Now, this phrase has special significance in my life because in the year 1969, I published an article which was published by Indian Builder, the then leading publication on construction industry in India. The article written by me was "Is time of the essence of the contract?" And I concluded the article by saying that looking to the nature of the construction contract, it is not possible to say that time shall be deemed to be of the essence of the contract. The article was pointed out by the senior engineers of the government of Maharashtra to the law department, and when it was found that it is written by a lecturer in engineering college Aurangabad, one telephone call to my principal, and within a couple of days I had to be in presence in the secretariat. I was secretariat. I don't have to tell you what kind of advice I received, but I realized that nobody will believe me unless and until I have qualification in law. And therefore, I cancelled my admission to ME and took admission to LLB course in a law college. Passed my LLB in 1971 and published my book in 1972 titled Legal Aspects of Building and Engineering Contracts. And the article formed part of one chapter. The proposition exactly 10 years after the article was published, that is in the year 1979, the Supreme Court of India considered clause 2 and 6 of the B1 form, or those B2 form also was there, B1, B2, and declared that though the contract says that time shall be deemed to be of the essence of the contract, time ceases to be of the essence of the contract if the very same contract contains provisions for extension of time and penalties for the essence of the contract. Now, this law has been very well established, followed subsequently by several judgments in the court, and therefore you can definitely say that in a construction contract which contains provisions like clause 2 and clause 6, time ceases to be the essence of the contract. Time is not of the essence of the contract. Now, what is the significance of time being not of the essence of the contract? One has to go to section 55 of the Indian Contract Act to answer this question. Section 55 of the Indian Contract Act is in 3 paragraphs. First paragraph gives consequences of non-performance of the contract within the agreed time if the intention of the parties is that time shall be deemed to be of the essence of the contract. The provision says that if time is deemed to be the essence of the contract, if not completed within the stipulated time, becomes voidable. Viable contract means it can be terminated by one party alone. Second party has no chance or no choice to terminate the contract. For example, if the work is delayed by the contractor and time is of the essence of the contract, department can terminate the contract after allowing the last working hour of the last working day to the contractor. Immediately the contract. But second para says that if the intention of the parties is that time shall not be deemed to be of the essence of the contract, then the party which breaches the terms and conditions of the contract, we call him a wrongdoer. So wrongdoer will have to compensate the injured party for the loss incurred on account of delay in completion. Remember, no notice is required to be given. It is inherent right of a party which is injured by a breach of the contract to claim compensation, and the law protects that right. Third paragraph is a corollary to first paragraph. In case the intends to accept the performance by extending the time, then it can do so. The concept of viable contract itself means that he has a right to ask the contractor to continue performance and complete the project, but compensation will be demanded at the time the performance is accepted. If no notice is given by the department to the contractor, that department intends to recover compensation, then compensation cannot be recovered. Whereas if the performance is delayed or there is a breach of a contract by the department, then the contractor's right to get compensation remains intact. Now, this significance and the background knowledge with this have a look at approach to now clause 2 has a heading compensation for delay. But it deals with the compensation for delay payable by the contractor to the department only. It doesn't deal with any delay on the part of the department resulting in delay in completion of the project. Therefore, the superintending engineer, who is given authority to decide compensation to be levied, has to first of all consider whether clause 2 is attracted or not. If there is any delay on the part of the department, if there is any cause on the part of the department resulting in delay in completion of the work, then clause 2 cannot be attracted. Then clause 6 will be there. So, since we now know that the law is of the contract, then compensation can be payable. But in payment of compensation, it being a penal action, it cannot be taken in an administrative manner. If the SE's decision is required to be final and binding, then the SE has to follow the procedure decision. That means a show cause notice must be issued first. The meeting must be held with both the parties. Causes of delay must be ascertained, and only if there is no cause of delay on the part of the department, but exclusively the delay is on the part of the contractor, then the penalty can be levied. Now, the penalty levy is covered by or governed by Section 74 of the Indian Contract Act. Section 74 deals with liquidated damages. Damage means injury. Liquidated means converted in terms of money. So delay causes injury, and that is to be converted in terms of money. That is liquidated damages. Why is liquidated damages? Actually, the law is that actual loss incurred has to be compensated. But in construction contracts, and in particular with public sector undertakings or public sector works, public works, it is difficult to assess the actual loss on account of delay, and therefore the parties agree in advance at the time of signing of the agreement that if the delay takes place, then this named as the liquidated damages will be payable. Now, this amount is payable provided it is upheld as correctly levied. Now, still the law is there, and that actually Constitution bench of the Supreme Court has held that no matter what the law says or Section 74 says, loss must be proved. If the loss is not proved, then there is no compensation payable, or only nominal compensation may be payable. Let us take a concrete example from the court cases. Canal contract was given to a contractor. Canal work was delayed. The contractor was penalized, and liquidated damages recovered. Now, when the matter went in litigation, chief engineer was called in the witness box, and the chief engineer was asked, was there water in the reservoir to be released in the canal? And he frankly admitted, no, the dam was not having the water to release in the canal. And therefore the court said there is no loss. If there is no loss, then there is no liquidated damages. Whatever the recovery was made was ordered to be refunded. Should be considered dispassionately, impartially, and the judgment arrived at if there is any reason attributable to the department, then do not indulge in levying penalty or recovery. Second thing is the provision of liquidated damages limits the recovery of compensation to the amount named. It is also well established by the decision of the Supreme Court of India that sorry, I was on the point of
upper limit of the compensation. Upper limit of the compensation.
Yeah. Sorry, I just missed the. Sorry for interruption. The quantum of compensation is limited to liquidated damages. If actual loss even can be proved to be more than liquidated damages, you cannot get the liquidated damages, excess or liquidated damages. So the limit is there. It is therefore need, I have in my book raised the question, why you specify 1% or 10%? Let it be said that reasonable compensation will be payable. Then it can be actual loss, will be reasonable compensation. So there will be no loss in case. Yeah, what I missed was the judgment of the Supreme Court, which says that an agreement cannot provide for unliquidated damages when there is a liquidated damages provision in the contract. Unliquidated damages are governed by Section 73 of the Indian Contract Act, and actual loss needs to be compensated, but which has to be proved also. So let us say that a contract is terminated under clause 3 because the liquidated damages reached the maximum limit of 10% of the contract sum or estimated cost put to tender, whatever the wording is there. Now, 3 alternatives are there. One is terminate the contract. The other is balance work is to be taken out. Balance work is to be taken out of the hands of the contractor and to be executed departmentally. And the third alternative is balance work to be executed through another agency. In past, in similar conferences, I was asked by the engineers that which option should be exercised and when it should be adopted. Of course, the decision of the engineer in that respect will be more valuable, but my suggestion is that adopt option A if the breach is at the beginning or starting. Sometimes the contractor doesn't pay security deposits. Sometimes the contractor refuses to sign the contract. Sometimes the contractor may sign the contract, commence the work, but then abandon it. So at the initial stage when the project is there, then it is better to adopt 3A because 3A entitles you to the compensation to the extent of LD. Not more than that. Departmentally execution of work may be generally found to be difficult because if departmental execution of the work can be carried out, then there is no need to introduce contractor a third agency at all. But because of the administrative difficulties, departmental engineers find it difficult to execute the work departmentally, and therefore it is generally given to another agency. But when the contract is terminated or abandoned by the contractor at a stage when substantial part of the work is done and no new agency is likely to come to take up the balance work, then option of executing the work departmentally requires itself. When substantial work is balanced and the agency can come and get interested in completing the work, then obviously the third option will be preferable. Now, when the contract is terminated under 3, then under clause 5, engineer is given power to take over or take the possession of machinery and equipment, materials at the site. A pitfall here is that what experience shows, such machinery is taken over, and new contract is floated, condition is not put that machinery taken over or material taken over from the previous agency will have to be used by the new agency. Such a provision is not made in the new agency contract, And new agency contractor is generally not interested in using the machinery and equipment of the other party. If the result is that I have experienced it in my career of over 50 years, that department ends in paying or giving credit for the idling of machinery and equipment for the lifetime of the machinery and equipment, balance lifetime of the machinery and equipment, and also pay to the new agency the cost for use of its own machinery and equipment. So this pitfall is to be avoided. Yeah, now next is clause 4. When overall progress is satisfactory, but work under a particular item is not satisfactory, then adopt clause 4 measure. That is, the engineer is authorized to take over that part of the work which is lagging or where the progress is not satisfactory from out of the hands of the contractor and get it executed through other agency. I personally find it to even imagine when this clause will be implemented without difficulty, without actually incurring a liability, because generally the contract is one. It is for the complete project, and you cannot terminate part of the contract when it is a comprehensive project and comprehensive contract. There is a provision for extension of time. Time is not of the essence of the contract. So when you are likely to extend the time for completion for the balance work, even the work on which progress is small or progress is short, that also gets time extension. So if you are going to terminate the part of the work in ongoing project before the time elapses, it may be objectionable. It may amount to a breach of contract. One can understand a situation where the progress of the work on a particular part can be separated out. Take, for example, work of aqueduct on a canal. Aqueduct is lacking. Canal is going over well. Out of the hands of the contractor and got it executed. But then again, the problem is if canal work, obviously the same extension of time is available to the contractor for even the unsatisfactory part of the work item also. So during discussion, I would like someone to educate me as to when clause 4 was used and successfully used. Now clause 5 is the next clause. Information so that I have done. Now, very interesting at the same time, very important is a provision in clause 6, namely time extension. Now, this clause 6, as I said earlier, is required to be read with clause 2. Now, some extension of time power is given to the executive engineer or tender accepting authority. Whose decision is final. Penalty is SE's decision final. Now, if SE is not the authority to extend the time, then if executive time has extended the time without penalty, SE cannot impose the penalty. So these two are conflicting with each other. Different authorities deciding the same question or a related question might create a conflict in the decisions of the two officers. So this is something which may have to be this clause if desired extension of time, it shall apply. In my year of 50 years, contracting from came to me and she sought advice, I said, do apply. But right in the very first sentence, we do not desire extension of time for completion of the balance work. If you want to extend the time, we are willing to give compensation to me for the delay. Legally, if we examine the provision, there is no question of any desire by any party. The law is well established, and that too well established by B2 form of the Maharashtra in the case of Hind Construction Contractors versus State of Maharashtra, reported in AIR 1979, Supreme Court 720. The alternative suggested by the Supreme Court is that, because what happens is when you implement this time extension clause, how much time more?
Yeah, please continue.
This extension of time clause is needed because time is not deemed to be of the essence of the contract. Now, when that extension is granted by the competent authority, in my earlier days, experience showed that a cyclostyle letter of extension of time used to be issued to the contractor, and in which last para used to be, all other conditions of the contract shall continue to remain in force. Now, when you extend the time by keeping in force all other terms of conditions of contract, that means the extension of time provision also continues, delay for compensation for delay also continues, and extended time ceases to be of the essence of the contract. Now, how long can this go on? Therefore, the Supreme Court has suggested that you extend the time and make that extended time of the essence of the contract, and then you can terminate the contract on the expiry of the extended time. Now, how to make a time, extended time of the essence of the contract? We have to suspend the 6 clause and operation of 2 clause to make the time, extended time of the essence of the contract. Now, I just queried with Narvekar Saab whether this clause 6A in the B1 form is common to all other contracts as well, or only to the form contract which was handed over to me for study. And that is all conditions of contract clause A is inserted. At the outset, I have to understand why this clause 6A is inserted when there is clause 15 doing exactly the same work. If you read clause 15, it says that for any reason whatsoever, if the work is required to be suspended or stopped, then any reason will include these reasons, clause 6A also. Now, clause 6A says that no compensation will be payable for delay in handing over of the land, whereas clause 15 provides for compensation when there is a delay in handing over land for a period in excess of 30 days. Now, legally, the rules of justification suggest that both clauses should be given some meaning, and drafter should not be deemed to have wasted the words by inserting clause 6A. Now, if 6A is to be given meaning, if 15 is to be given meaning, then 6A can apply for the period of 29 days only. So if a delay is of 29 days, then no compensation. But the same purpose will be served by, if you read clause 15, which says that first 30 days, no compensation will be paid. So absolutely 6A has no place to be inserted. Unnecessarily, it will confuse the parties. The compensation will be denied by the engineer operating 6A, whereas when the matter goes to judicial decision making, 6A will be not applicable, but 15 will be applicable, because contractor will say it is suspended under clause 15 and not under 6A, and therefore he is entitled to compensation. So such a pitfalls can be avoided by avoiding this duplication of 6A and 15. Next is clause 14 is deviations and variations. Another important provision is peculiarity of the construction contracts. That very rarely a construction contract gets completed in the manner in which it was planned, designed, and estimated. Some changes are bound to take place, and these changes are again covered here by 14 and also 38. There are two provisions. 14 says contract will not be released by alteration in the specifications, designs, etc. How this clause can aid in pitfall? In order to cut short my submission, I will say that directly go to the court case. A spillway construction contract was awarded in state of Patna, Bihar, state of Bihar, and contractor commenced the work, and then the contract was cancelled, terminated. Contract was terminated on account of discharge of the overflow having been revised by the Central CWC, Central Water Power Commission, and therefore 35 crores work could be executed in 15 crores, and therefore the engineer thought better to terminate the contract and give the work to the new agency by floating the contracts. Now, when the matter went to the court of law, the contractor pleaded that they wanted to change the design, they wanted to change the specification, they wanted to change the scope. They can do it under this provision of the contract. They need not terminate my contract. There is a provision in this contract as to how the new cost is to be arrived at, how the new rates are to be worked out, and therefore termination is bad. Full bench decision of Patna High Court upheld the contention of the contractor and said that termination of the contract was for terms dehorse the terms of the contract. Termination was for reasons beyond the terms of the contract. So you have to be a little bit cautious about this 14. 14 also will have one more problem. Actually, I can go on and on, but it is important. It says that altered work will be executed on the basis of rates entered in the schedule of rates. Right?
Yes.
Now, schedule of rate of which is the question. Schedule of rate of the year in which the agreement was signed, or schedule of rate of the year in which the work is executed. And sometimes the legal strict interpretation will be parties, when they sign the contracts, refer to schedule of rate, therefore they refer to the schedule of rate of the signing of the contract and not when the work is executed. Now, if you take that interpretation, then you will be liable to pay escalation, though escalation is generally not awarded or you paid on extra items. So somehow you will have to see that the contractor is not penalized by use of this power of alteration. Another time, Sorry. The time when this power is to be exercised of modification or changes to be introduced in the work is also results in pitfall, kind of wrong decision, erroneous decision on the part of the engineer. Actually, this right should be exercised at a time when this change will not affect the planned program of the contractor. Now, a number of cases I have won in arbitration on the ground that the changes were ordered after the originally stipulated time limit elapsed. So that care has to be taken when you order this, when you exercise the right. You have the right, no doubt about it, but if you execute the right, exercise the right at the wrong time, you have to pay compensation. Now the clause 15 is one important provision. Again, you will find that this clause is in fact 4 in 1. It deals with 4 matters. I did not know why it is put 4 in 1. First, it deals with suspension. In good old days, if I remember, clause 15 was dealing only with suspension. Somebody has modified it now. Now it deals with not only suspension, but partial termination. It also deals with full termination. And it also deals with deviations and variations under clause 14. These multiple provisions being clubbed together in one clause will definitely create problems for administration of the contract. And particularly when 14 is having a separate clause, then termination is having a separate clause 3, there is no need to club together these different provisions of the contract under one club, one point. Another important point to be noticed from the judicial pronouncement is that this power of taking out the work from the hands of one contractor and can be exercised only when the work is genuinely and bona fidely not required. Earlier provision or even CPWD clause, similar clause is there, which used to say that if after commencement of the work, the power is exercised. Now you have modified it in B1 form to say that after signing of the contract, the power is exercised. Now, if you consider the law that a contract comes into existence on the date on which, at the place where the letter of acceptance is posted, then the contract comes into existence prior to signing of the formal contract. If you want to terminate the contract between the two events, you will be required to pay compensation to the contractor. In fact, in one case, I got 10% profit without without lifting a stone in the site. By putting that, this clause can be operated only after the work is commenced, or in your case, only after the work contract document is signed. If the contract has already come into existence and there is a breach of that, then the compensation for loss of profit will have to be paid. Now, I think I'll go directly to disputes resolution. Work not, yeah, sublet and This also, I will tell you an interesting story about subletting. Subletting is permitted with the consent of the engineer or with the approval of the engineer to an agreed percentage, generally 50%. Now, invariably, the experience shows that permission is not taken, but the work is sublet. In one case, the engineer took courage and terminated the contract on the ground that subletting was done and it was without permission. Now, the contractor in a judicial proceeding took the stand that person working as a subcontractor was on the trial basis to ascertain whether his performance will be satisfactory or not. And if it is found satisfactory, then I was going to apply for written permission. And when the engineer said it's not satisfactory, and I also found that it is not satisfactory, I terminated the subcontract. So this we will have to again take care of, that subletting should be allowed to the percentage stipulated. Assignment is totally different. Assignment means total rights are assigned to somebody else and the contractor is not responsible. In subletting, the contractor remains responsible for the performance of the contract, and therefore the distinction is there between the two. Now, next is I think given, or we have, sorry, not I, but we have so far dealt with some sample provisions in the B1 form, which result in disputed provisions, disputes arising out of the contract. Now, the contract also provides for a resolution of a dispute in clause 30. Now, clause 30, 31, 30, A, B, C are, it's now complicated. Small provision that decision of the superintending engineer shall be final. Now, at that time, Supreme Court of India considered this clause as arbitration clause, because the criteria decided was that there should be a dispute, there should be a reference of the dispute, and there should be finality of the person giving the decision. Now, all these three aspects were satisfied by clause 30 by making superintending engineer as an arbitrator. I consider, I may add here an experience of mine that when Supreme Court decision said it is arbitration clause, I got an arbitrator appointed. Then when the arbitration proceedings were in progress, the arbitrator one day told me that law secretary has pointed out to me that Supreme Court has changed its decision and this clause is no longer an arbitration clause. And therefore, the chief engineer, who was arbitrator, refused to go ahead with arbitration. The party had to go to the High Court, and the High Court said that when you were appointed as arbitrator, the law was that you could be appointed. Therefore, you should have continued. Arbitrator was changed and the arbitration continued. Now, very well established law is that this is not an arbitration clause. The reason for mentioning that this is not an arbitration clause was a para heading given by the Supreme Court, that it contains that direction and control. It is administrative decision and it is not a judicial decision, and therefore it is not an arbitration clause. By adding 32, 31, 32, you have confirmed that this is not an arbitration clause. Now, the process has to be followed. If contractor wants to go to a court of law, he cannot go directly. The court will insist that you first exhaust the process mentioned in the contract for resolution of the dispute. So the first decision will have to be referred to superintending engineer, then the appeal to the chief engineer, and then the recommendation by the executive director of to the secretary committee. and then secretary committee's decision, if not available or if not accepted by the contractor, then the contractor can go to court. Special conditions of contracts stipulate that name a court or judicial authority which is empowered to deal with the case. Such selection, for example, in this particular case, which court will have jurisdiction problem arises. Where the work is executed, the court where the agreement is signed, both will have the jurisdiction. And if the parties name a particular court out of these two, then that decision of the party is final, binding, and only that court alone can deal with this matter. Before I close, friends, let me read a passage from forward contributed to the model form of contract prepared by Government of India, Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation, Infrastructure and Project Management Division. I quote, inequity conditions in construction contract has been identified as one of the major maladies in project execution. Traditionally, the text of contract documents is drafted by the owner, and this normally results in a manual which sometimes is drafted to favor one of the parties entering into a contract. An inequitable contract hurts all parties at all times and therefore is not a workable contract. Then there is a question of multiplicity of contract text. Almost all wings of the government, be they the union ministries, state departments, or even the public sector undertakings, both of central as well as the state government, have evolved and practiced their own contract texts. Several of these are not relevant and designed to meet the exigencies posed by the complexities of the present day contract management requirements. In this background, this Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation took initiative and developed a model form. In conclusion, I will say that this B1 form, my personal opinion, deserves to be scrapped in totality, and the form prepared by Niti Aayog or Government of India, one of these two should be adopted. They are the best in the, not only in India, but the best in other countries as well, because the forms have been model forms have been prepared based on best conditions like bidding and other conditions enforced or used internationally. They are fair, and even this I have shown to you that one-sided conditions also do not really there is no benefit of keeping the one-sided contract. One difficulty you will have in changing the contract form, and that is, actually there are two difficulties. First is human nature resists change, and the second is that reluctance to give up the power which is there given by the contract conditions which are one-sided. So thank you very much.
आपण क्वेश्चन आन्सर सेशन ठेवलेला आहे. ज्यांना क्वेश्चन्स रेज करायचे असतील त्यांनी आपल्या स्क्रीनवरचं जे हँड रेजिंगचं बटन आहे ते बटन आपल्याला आम्हाला समजेल की आपल्याला क्वेश्चन विचारायचा आहे.
वैशाली नाकर मॅडम, तुम्ही अनम्यूट करून प्रश्न विचारू शकता. वैशाली नाकर मॅडम, तुम्हाला आम्ही अनम्यूट केलंय, तुमचे प्रश्न विचारू शकता. गुंजन जाधव सर, आपण आपला प्रश्न विचारू शकता. मॅडम प्रश्न विचारा. मॅडम गुंजन मॅडम प्रश्न विचारा. संतोष त्रिपांडवर सर, आपण आपला प्रश्न विचारू शकता. आपल्याला अनम्यूट केलंय.
सर आवाज येतोय का माझा? नार्वेकर साहेब आवाज येतोय का?
हा, तुमचा आवाज येतोय, आपण बोला.
हा सर, मी पाटील साहेब, मी मुख्य अभियंता कोकण प्रदेश मुंबई बोलतोय. सर, आपण एक सबलेटिंग बद्दल विषय काढलेला होता. बऱ्याचदा काय होतं की काही कॉन्ट्रॅक्टर्स सबलेट करतात पण उशिराने सबलेटिंगची परवानगी मागायला येतात, तोपर्यंत अर्ध काम झालेलं असतं. तर अशा केसमध्ये मग त्यांना त्या डेट पासून सबलेटिंग अलाउ करायचं का मागच्या डेट पासून करायचं, नेमकं क्लॉज काय म्हणतं याबद्दल, किंवा असं करता येतं?
Yeah, actually, bona fide difficulty you have in decision making, but personally, I feel that a subcontractor is working at the site. He is within the knowledge of the inspecting engineer. Though he may be visiting periodically, you must have noticed that some other agency than the main contractor is working at the site. And if he has not committed to that appointment or working by the person, then obviously retrospective effect permission will be given, should be given. That is my suggestion.
Okay, thank you, sir.
म्यूट केले, आपण प्रश्न विचारू शकतो. रोहित देशमुख सर, आपण अनम्यूट करा आपल्या एंडवरून आणि आपण प्रश्न विचारू शकता. आपण सेल्फ म्युटेड आहात. अजय गोयेकर सर प्रश्न विचारू शकता. आपल्याला आम्ही अनम्यूट केलं.
Sir, there is one question regarding previously there were some LCB contracts, and in that the provision was about arbitration clause 52, 53 like that. And then what happened? There were a lot of arbitration cases. Somewhere even after completion of the project, 4 to 5 years after the project, the contractor raised some disputes, and then arbitrator was appointed, and huge imaginary losses were awarded by the arbitrator. The losses include loss in profit, idle machinery, revision of rates, and all other things. What I want to say is the claims which contractor is claiming, those are outside the scope of Schedule B, and even there are many imaginary losses, and there is no bar on what he should award. So the government lost many cases even in high courts and Supreme Courts also. So how to stop this at initial stage only? Because there are instances where the contract amount was 1 crore and the arbitrator awarded 24 crores and with 18% interest, and the amount went to about 100 crores and more.
What's the question?
So how to stop at the initial stage only?
No. You have said what happened. What is your precise question, please?
So the precise question is it should be stopped at the initial stage.
Thank you very much. As I understand and appreciate your question or query, I'll try to reply to my ability. Many times, amount awarded it seems to be disproportionate of construction. I have dealt with a specific case of a first bridge on the sea in Asia, in India, and contract was for 5 crores. 2.5 crores work was completed. Work was brought up above the water level, seawater level, and then the contract of 2.5 crores was terminated. Now that contract, 2.5 crores was awarded to another agency for 12.5 crores. And in order that 2.5 crores work was taken out of hands of my client, I claimed 4-5 crores of compensation. So the compensation which I got was much in excess of the balance quantum of the work taken out of my hands, because the machinery and equipment was taken over. So that also added to the compensation. Now, as regards the limitation, you will have to see, I have to begin with beginning. One of the provision in the B1 form says that all payments are advances. Their final bill will be settling the accounts between the parties. Now, if the final bill is delayed, then so final bill settlement will spend the 3 years period of, and all which have limit and arbitrator can exercise work of awarding the money. Now, the say, I will again go back to 6A. Supreme Court of India has ruled that no compensation payable clause is valid for the government, not for the arbitrator or a court. So an engineer may not be allowed to give the money under this provision, but court and arbitrator can award. So these are the instances why sometimes, and one more point is there, many times the original basic award is for a smaller amount, but the interest mounts up because of the law's delays in settling the case. And the interest amount awarded also adds to the award amount, and it looks like disproportionate. I hope I have tried to clarify your doubt. Thank you.
वैशाली ठाकरे मॅडम
आपला प्रश्न विचारू. वैशाली ठाकरे मॅडम आपला प्रश्न विचारू शकता. आपण प्रश्न विचारू शकता. गरुड सर आपण आपला प्रश्न विचारू शकता अनम्यूट करून.
हॅलो हॅलो हॅलो
आवाज
हॅलो.
येतोय? प्रश्न विचारा. आवाज येतोय? प्रश्न विचारा मॅडम.
हा सर आवाज येतोय माझा?
मॅडम आवाज येतोय? प्रश्न विचारू शकता मॅडम.
हा माझे एक दोन प्रश्न आहेत सरांना. एक म्हणजे आपण एक्सटेन्शन दिलेलं आहे कॉम्पिटंट अथॉरिटीने, म्हणजे सपोज सीईने आपण एक्सपेक्ट केलेलं आहे की त्या पिरियड मध्ये ते काम कम्प्लीट करू शकेल, बट द कॉन्ट्रॅक्टर प्रोग्रेस इज व्हेरी मच लो अँड वी ascertain that he will not complete within extension period. So to increase the progress of his work, can we impose penalty for a short period during extension? Hello.
Sorry, let me understand your question. The question is that progress is very slow in the extended period?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So we want to impose a penalty to increase the progress by contractor. So can we impose the penalty during extended period?
Penalty is always for the extended period. Because
okay, but extension is granted already.
Yeah, extension is unconditionally granted, or some extension is granted always with the rider that without prejudice to the right of the department to levy penalty or liquidated damages. So generally, precaution by the engineer while extending the time to mention that it is subject to recovery of LD.
Okay.
Now, actually, the question is, during the extended period, progress is slow and the party is not likely to complete the work within the extended period. What is the course of open to the department? If this is the question, thank you very much for asking it. It's very pertinent and important question.
Okay.
The problem is that when you grant extension,
okay,
contract, in which
pardon,
event you can impose the penalty.
Pardon, sir, please repeat, sir, because the.
Repeat. Yeah, you just repeat it. See,
Sir.
please repeat.
What I say is that if the extended time is made of the essence of the contract,
Okay.
then if work is not completed, then the contract can also be terminated. But
Okay.
care has to be taken that extended period is made of the essence of the contract. And
Okay.
if you say, when you extend the time, that all other terms and conditions of the contract will continue to apply, then the time will cease to be of the essence of the contract. And then again, it will be as if non-completion within the originally stipulated time limit.
Okay.
So, actual operation of this extension of time, this is important. You must make the extended time of the essence if you want to stop the work, terminate the work, and take it out of hand of the contractor.
Okay.
If the difference is, if it's abandon the work, then you are free. Then you can.
Okay.
But if progress is slow, then you can do only if the extended time is made of the essence of the contract. Thank you.
मॅडम दुसरा प्रश्न विचारा, तुमचा एक दुसरा काहीतरी प्रश्न होता.
हा सर, माझा दुसरा प्रश्न आहे की देर एनी अदर क्लॉज आहे का, म्हणजे क्लॉज 15 आणि क्लॉज 3ABC या व्यतिरिक्त एखादा क्लॉज आहे का टेंडर टर्मिनेट करायचा आहे, म्हणजे टेंडर म्हणजे खूप वर्षापूर्वीच आहे, 10-12 वर्ष पार्टली काम झालेलं आहे आणि दोघांचेही हे आहेत की म्हणजे डिपार्टमेंटचं पण हे आहे प्रॉब्लेम आहे आणि कॉन्ट्रॅक्टरचा पण, की 10-12 वर्षापूर्वीचं टेंडर असल्यामुळे तो त्या रेटने काम करू शकत नाही आणि डिपार्टमेंटने त्यावेळी त्याला पूर्ण लँड ऍक्विजिशन म्हणा किंवा हे होऊन दिलेलं नाही, त्यामुळे जेवढं हे झालं तेवढं पार्टली काम कम्प्लीट आहे. परंतु मला 3ABC पण वापरायचे नाहीयेत किंवा बिकॉज इट इज नॉट अ फॉल्ट ऑफ कॉन्ट्रॅक्टर, किंवा 15 खाली जर तो मंजुरी म्हणजे सहमती देत नसेल तर जे काम झालंय त्यालाच तेवढं फायनल बिल करून जर हे करायचं असेल, कॉन्ट्रॅक्ट क्लोज करायचं असेल, तर क्लॉज 15 किंवा क्लॉज 3ABC व्यतिरिक्त कुठला क्लॉज आहे का? आहे त्याला असंच फायनल बिल करून आपण वन साइडेड टेंडर फायनल करू शकतो का?
Actually, owner has a right to terminate the contract at any time. Provision in the agreement is required for termination of the contract. Legal or illegal. If it is held legal, then no consequence. But if it is held illegal, then obviously the contractor will have to be compensated for illegal termination. So simply terminating the contract, yes, the courts do not enforce specific performance of construction contracts. Courts say that the owner is entitled to change the agency, terminate the contract, and in case it is illegally done, then compensation is to be paid to the contractor. But your right to terminate the contract is intact.
Okay, sir. So what clause has to be mentioned? They just only to do final bill and it is terminated?
No, you see, the real reason why you want to terminate the contract has to be stated. There is no need for a specific clause.
Okay, sir.
Clause will be 3 only. Because first of all, your full compensation by way of liquidated damages must be recovered before exercising termination right.
Okay. Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
गरुड सर, आपला प्रश्न विचारा.
सर, माझा प्रश्न आर्बिट्रेशन बाबत आहे. What is the eligibility of an arbitrator under the Arbitration and Conciliation Act? म्हणजे can an officer sitting at the apex position, say for example a secretary of the same department, can he act as an arbitrator?
There are a number of decisions of the Supreme Court and various high courts in India upholding the provision made in the contract that a sitting engineer or an employee of owner can be an arbitrator. However, the position has now changed with the amendments brought in Arbitration Act 2015. Amendment has said that any person who is to act as arbitrator cannot be an employee or representative of one of the parties. So now the disqualification is there. Department's own man cannot be arbitrator unless, of course, accepted by both the parties. If both the parties accept, then there is no question, no problem.
Okay, sir. And if the appointment has been then prior to 2015,
Please repeat the question.
sir, if the appointment for the arbitrator, if it has been made prior to 2015, means the amendment.
2015.
Yeah, then it's valid.
Okay, sir.
The
One.
amendment is operational only post amendment date, not previous. So all appointments made before amendment of the act, the department's officer, if appointed as arbitrator, can continue and give the award as an arbitrator.
Okay, thank you, sir. One more question. What is the date of the limitation? Means when we can say that the limitation start, whether it is a final bill or a breach of a contract.
When the limitation date starts, the period of limitation starts, it is the final bill.
Yeah. Period of limitation begins with the cause of action. The date on which the cause of action takes place is the starting point of limitation, and generally the period is 3 years. Now, cause of action for arbitration is dispute arising. That means a claim is pending of the contractor with the department. The department refuses or declines to accept the claim. The date on which the claim is rejected by the department is the cause of action for and the period will be 3 years from that point onwards.
Okay, sir. Okay, thank you, sir.
गुंजन जाधव सर, गुंजन जाधव आपण आपला प्रश्न गुंजन जाधव मॅडम, आपण अनम्यूट करून आपला प्रश्न विचारा.
तर नव्याने काही प्रश्न आपल्याकडे नाहीये, पण थोडं मी ऍड करतो की क्लॉज करताना साधारण डिपार्टमेंट प्रोसेस केली जाते की एकदा पाठवतो
So, person who is allowed or authorized to take decision must take the decision and communicate with under his name, under his signature, not through somebody else.
सर थँक्स. सगळे प्रश्न झालेले आहेत. आता नवीन काही आपल्याकडे प्रश्न नाही. पाटील सरांनी गेले जवळपास 1.25 तास आपल्याला पिटफॉल्स इन ऍडमिनिस्ट्रेशन ऑफ B1 कॉन्ट्रॅक्ट्स, खरं तर हा विषय इतका मोठा आहे की हा विषय मोठा असल्यामुळं आम्ही असा विचार केला होता की काही मोजकेच त्याच्यामध्ये क्लॉजेस घ्यावे जे ज्याच्याबद्दलच डिस्प्यूट अराईज होण्याची शक्यता जास्त असते. त्यामुळे जे प्रमुख क्लॉजेस आहेत ते याच्यामध्ये डिस्क्राईब करण्याचा प्रयत्न केलेला आहे. त्यामध्ये तर मी पुनश्च एकदा पाटील साहेबांचा आभार व्यक्त करतो. 2 दिवसांनी ते वयाची 82वी वर्ष पूर्ण करतायत. त्यांना त्याच्या पुढील आयुष्यासाठी शुभेच्छा देतो आणि असा वेबिनार संपला. जय